Welcome to this webinar on data sufficiency. The purpose of taking this webinar is obviously because we have realized that a lot of students, when they start off the preparation or during the preparation phase in the middle or the end, realize that data sufficiency is something that you may not be that good at it. You're struggling at in certain questions, right? So it makes sense to have a session on it and discuss what are the reasons of making mistakes and how you can avoid it. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm going to be a host today. My name is Saqib. I am the lead product manager at GMAT. And what you see on the platform, I'm the principal architect of that. I have helped in creating the course that you see on the platform, as well as the analytics. And basically, whatever you see on the platform, I have a major role in creating it. Apart from that, I love teaching quant, and I love taking these sessions. The idea is obviously to help you understand quant easily. So I try my best to simplify concepts as well as any skills that I'm teaching in the most easiest manner. Okay, so the session will be conducted as usual in the same way. I'll start off by directly jumping into the webinar. I'll talk about, first of all, what are the main reasons because of which you make mistakes in data sufficiency. And then I'm going to take up a few questions and then show you exactly how you make mistakes and how you can avoid them. And after the end of the main part, I usually keep 10 to 15 minutes at the end, so that if you have any general questions, apart from concept-related queries, say, for example, you want to know how to do well in quant or in GMAT in general, you can feel free to ask those questions at the end of the webinar. I will I'll try my best to answer them. Okay, so let's get started, guys. First of all, let me talk about why do students falter in data sufficiency questions. This is something which I've been seeing the trend from the last, since whenever I've started basically teaching GMAT, is that most of these students have a general higher accuracy in problem solving questions. But when it comes to data sufficiency, their accuracy is, and I'm talking about majority of them, not all of them, but the data sufficiency accuracy is kind of low. Now, I think there are four main reasons for not being able to do well in data sufficiency questions. And I'll talk about them one by one and share your thoughts if you believe that, if you agree with what I'm saying. The first and the most obvious reason that you falter in any question, be it data sufficiency or problem solving, is, I believe, is a lack of conceptual clarity. Okay, and this is the most obvious reason. So whenever you are starting your preparation for GMAT, or whether you are you've been preparing for some time, make sure that whatever DS question that you're solving, the concept related to that question is perfectly clear. Okay, if that is not clear, then obviously solving that data sufficiency question would be difficult. Like, for example, and I've taken a demi question here. We are not going to solve it, but I'm using this question just to put my point forward. Is that, let's say this is a question that you come across and you see the words like common factor or factors, these kind of words, right? And if you're not really clear what is the meaning of a factor, or when I say find out all the factors of 6, if that is not clear to you or how to find that, you will definitely make a mistake in this question. Like, I've seen people, when I ask what are the factors of 6, the most common response that I get is 2 and 3. Okay, they forget about 1, they forget about 6, and if you forget about these values, then obviously if you forget or if you don't know, then you won't be able to solve a data sufficiency question correctly. So number one thing, if you want to improve your data accuracy in data sufficiency questions, I would strongly recommend that you make sure that you go through the concepts first. Okay, if the concepts are not strong, it's not going to work. But this is something which I would say, yes, it's valid for a problem solving question also. So let me talk about three more reasons, in fact, which I feel plays an important role. And this, I feel, majority of people, if I have to say 60 to 70% of the people, I think, make a mistake in data sufficiency question because of the lack of thorough analysis. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, when I say lack of thorough analysis, what I mean is that you look at the statement, the question stem, and sometimes you directly jump into the statements, okay, without even thinking whether to analyze the question stem properly or not. And sometimes when you don't analyze the question stem properly, you don't really know what you're looking for. And that is kind of backfires most of the time, especially in difficult questions and medium questions. If if it's not clear what you need to find out, you will make a mistake in a data sufficiency question. And here's another example, just to put my point forward, is let's say a question on even odd, right? And in a question where they are asking you, is x into y even? A lot of students, basically what they do is just read it. They don't make an analysis, and they jump directly into the statement thinking, okay, I need x and y, so let me figure out what is x and y. And that's wrong. If they're asking you whether the product is even, it's very, very important that you make a deduction, make an inference saying that I need to just figure out at least one of them is even or not. If even one of them turns out to be even, the product would be even. If you don't make that inference, then what will happen is you'll struggle a lot of, you will look at each statement, you'll try and see what exactly is X, what exactly is Y, and waste time and maybe end up marking the wrong answer. Okay, now how do you improve in this? Well, this is something which I've been talking about in almost all my webinars, is that apart from the concept, you need to sharpen your deduction skills, simplification skills, and translation skills. I see a lot of people not doing well in word problem because they're not able to translate the question in the form of an equation. In data sufficiency, if you're not being able to do that, you will exactly not know what to find. And if you don't know what to find, well, then again, there's a high chance that you might make a mistake. Okay. How many of you agree with this? I've been doing a monologue for a long time. So how many of you believe that you make a mistake because maybe you missed out in any case? I added a poll, mark yes if you believe you fall in this category. That you solve a question very quickly, you make a mistake because maybe you did not analyze the question stem properly, or maybe while analyzing these statements, you ended up making a mistake or you missed out any case, something like that. Okay. Okay, I can see almost every one of you marking yes. So I think you can relate to it, right? This is one of the biggest problems I feel in data sufficiency question. The third one is, I would say, quite kind of funny, but it applies to all of you, most of you, really. Sorry, most of you. That in data sufficiency question, I've seen people being really lazy, especially when they're starting off the GMAT prep. Okay, what do I mean by that? And this is like kind of related to the second one only. When I say being lazy, what I mean is, and I'm going to explain that with the help of an example. You look at a question stem, okay? You very quickly don't follow the process. You look at both these statements simultaneously. You look at both of them, and you'll say, okay, I need X. I have two simultaneous two equations. I just need to solve this simultaneously, and I'll get my answer, right? Now, I call this being lazy. Why do I call that? Because you're not even spending some time to actually solve and see whether you can actually get the answer or not. Now, what's the difference between second and third one, like lack of thorough analysis? In the second one, at least you're putting in some effort. You're trying to do something with the statements, and whatever you're doing might not work out. That's a different thing. But in this case, you generally just look at the question stem and mark your answer. And don't do a lot of analysis. How many of you have been in such a scenario where you look at the question, you think, hey, it looks both of them are sufficient, so let me mark the answer. Okay, I can again see all of you are saying yes, almost 100% of you are saying yes. So guys, these are things that are something that we have figured it out, right? If you know that this doesn't work, looking at a statement and directly marking the answer doesn't work, please don't do it. Don't just skim through the information and jump to the conclusion. That's what I would say. Don't do it. Take time. You have 2 minutes per question in the exam, and I've told this time and again, 2 minutes is a lot of time. All you need to do here is just check whether both the equations are same or not. It will hardly take you 1.5 minutes or 1 minute at the max if you're good with calculations. So why not spend that time and check it and then mark the answer so that your accuracy improves, and so does your confidence, because now you know that you can get the question correct. So instead of marking the answer as C, if you would have looked closely, you would have figured out the answer would be E, because both the equations are the same. They have been, the numbers look different, but on close analysis, you'll figure out they would end up being same. Okay, so this is the third. The last is something I would say apply to both PS and DS, but in DS, what happens is that, again, if you want to save some time, you end up marking the answer very quickly. Sometimes it could be just because pure play, you want to save time. Sometimes it's because you end up maybe, say, getting a very huge question. You see a lot of text. This is the feedback that I've got from a lot of students. Hey, the question was very wordy. I could not read it in the exam. I panicked. I marked something because I wanted to save time, and I moved ahead. Now, what I've generally seen is, and I did show you a lot of examples in my previous webinars, those of you who have attended it, that most of the wordy questions have a lot of fluff, a lot of information which is not useful as such. Okay, the only task is to read it carefully and just figure out, think of it as like a CR question stem, I would say, okay, which is of 2 to 3 lines. Read it as the way you would have read a CR question. You've already trained yourself to do a CR question in 2.5 minutes, right? So think of it as a CR question, read it, figure out what is the important information from this, and then solve the question. Most of the times, I would say the question is very easy. The information that is given in the question is not too much. It's just that they'll talk about a lot of things which are not that useful. So all in all, I would say these are the 4 major reasons, according to me, because of which students fall to. Okay. There are other fringe reasons also, but they are common to both PS and DS, like not reading properly and all those stuff. But they kind of, it gets encapsulated in the 4th thing. If you want to save time, you end up reading very quickly sometimes. So all in all, what I would say is that if you want to improve in data sufficiency questions or in problem solving questions in general, guys, the first thing, obviously, what you need to do is focus on concepts. Make sure that concepts are good. Sometimes if your conceptual knowledge is not good, then also you end up taking a lot of time in the exam. If for some of you time is a big factor, it's important that your concepts, like, you don't have to take a lot of time to recall the formulas. If you're someone who is still taking a lot of time to recall the formulas, that means you haven't learned it well. And I'm being very frank and blunt here and telling you very clearly why things don't work. Okay. Second thing, what I would say is understand the right process to solve the question. And what do I mean by that? As I told you, you sometimes you're not very sure how to write cases. You're not sure what's the right method to analyze a statement. And this is something which takes some time to develop over the period of time when you're preparing for GMAT Quant. You would need to reinforce certain kind of right processes from time and again. And those of you students, I would strongly suggest, and I think they already know, that you should watch the video solutions of the boosters. When I've written video solutions of the boosters, what I mean is that in our course, basically, we provide video solutions, right? And we actually, and this is again done by me only. So I actually have shown in each and every question what is the right way to solve the question, how do you make different cases, and this is kind of reinforced again and again and again and again over the course. Okay, and it doesn't matter what course you're using, whether you're using GMAT, Wiz, or something other, doesn't matter. My point is, from wherever you're learning, make sure that you are understanding the process of solving the question properly. If you're not doing that, you will falter. Okay, lastly, don't worry about time. I've been reiterating it in almost every webinar. I'm doing it again. 2 minutes is more than enough. You'll have certain easy questions which you will be able to solve under a minute. So you can use that time in, if you need more time in certain questions, you can use the time that you have saved in easy questions and apply it here. Okay. Now, I've talked about a lot of stuff. I've talked about questions being wordy, not doing thorough analysis. And so again, what I'm going to do is the same as I do in every webinar. I'm going to take questions, about 6 to 8, depending on how much time we have for the webinar and how much, depending on the pace of the session. And through these questions, I'm going to show you how, where do you falter and how you can avoid those mistakes in data sufficiency questions. Okay. Obviously, if you understand the webinar is on the data sufficiency, so I would want you to be alert. I'm sure you would be alert for any kind of traps, which is good. So give your best. The process remains the same. I'll give you a question. I'll give you 2 minutes to solve the question. And once I have sufficient responses, I will end the poll, and then I'll discuss what's the best way to solve the question and why did you falter if you faltered. Okay, so let me know if this is perfectly clear. Let me kindly mark yes if this is perfectly clear, and then I'll start off with the first question. I've added a poll. If this is perfectly clear, please mark yes, and then I'll show the first question. Okay, I can see it's clear to everyone. Okay, guys, so I'm showing you the first question, and here's the first one on your screen. Once again, do not put in your responses in the chat box, please. I don't want that. I'm adding a poll. Use that poll to give your response. Just one sec, guys. Let me reset it. One sec. Display. Yep. So here's the poll, guys. And you have 2 minutes to solve it. Okay, so I've started getting responses now. I'll give you another 20 seconds. We are already past 2 minutes. I'm giving you 20 more seconds. So those of you who haven't put in your responses, I would request you to kindly do so. Once again, keep in mind in GMAT, you have to mark something, right? So it would be great if you can get into the habit of it from now on only. So if whatever you have done, think of it, you have just 5 seconds, you need to mark the answer, mark something. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. So I hope you can see the responses. I have a mixed response. I have about 35% of you who think the answer should be C. Okay. And I have an equal split between D and E, 25%, 25% each. Okay, that's great. And about 10%, 5% of you think the answer should be A or B. But again, I don't see a clear winner as such. Even if 35% is C, I see people still have certain doubts. So first of all, tell me, how did you find this question? Was this difficult? As usual, would you say it's too wordy, too much information? How was the question basically? Did you find it difficult? Wordy, okay. Too much information. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tricky, okay. Wordy but easy. Okay. Easy question, just too wordy. Yes, so there are a few of you are saying that it's easy but too wordy, and some of you are saying it's difficult. Okay, so again, as I told you, I am going to discuss this question, obviously, and I'm going to show you that if you read it properly, read it slowly, make the right inferences, you can solve the question within 2 minutes, and you can even make sure that you get the correct answer. Isaac, when they say the first digit, it always means they're by convention left only. Okay, so you don't need to worry about it. If they wanted to talk from the right, they would have mentioned it. Okay, Anushka says easy plus wordy. Okay, let's discuss this question. And let me go to the next slide. Okay, so again, I'll read it the way and solve the question the way I would have solved it in an exam. Okay, so it's given in a certain team, the workforce planning sheet for each day is given an 8-digit unique document number. So see, it's just telling me this full sentence is just telling me that there's an 8-digit number, unique document number. Okay, nothing else. The first 6 digits of the document number is the date of the preparation of the planning sheet in DDMMYY format. And this is something which you all know, right? We have worked with dates. So they're telling me if there are 8 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The first 6 digits are basically DD, MM, and YY. Okay, in this format. And they have given us an example also. So if I have 3rd February 2010, so I take 03, Feb 02, and 10. This is again something which you're all aware of. So till this place, I'm sure nobody should have a problem, and we should be able to read these 3.5 lines at least very quickly. Okay, let's come to the next part. The 7th digit, so basically they're talking about this digit of the document, is the units digit of 9 times the sum of the first and the 3rd digit. Okay, so either you can take numbers or simply write down somewhere first plus 3rd times 9 units digit basically is the 7th one. So I'll write it down because I don't want to go back to the question again reading it. Okay, and the 8th digit, so they're talking about this digit now, is the units digit. Once again, I am talking about the units digit. Okay, is 11 times the sum of the 2nd and the 4th digit. Okay, so I can see a symmetry also. They're talking about 1st, 3rd, 2nd, 4th, which is fine. Okay. Now, if a document number is in the form of, and now see, they are giving me a document number. So it's good. So what I can do is I can simply say, okay, this is A, B, C, D, 1, 3, 8, 1. Okay. Where A, B, C are non-negative single-digit numbers. Non-negative means the numbers can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, anything. That is one inference that you should be able to make, that the numbers can be 0, 1, 2, 3. In which month and on what day of that month the document was prepared. So basically they're asking me the value of A, B, C, D. So if I look at this whole question, big question, they just told me this thing. I have a 8-digit number. The 6 digits represent a date, which we already know how to work with. And they're telling me how am I getting my 7th and 8th digit, which I've already copied. So I'm not going back to the question. Okay. Before going to the statements, there are certain things which if I would want, I can do. Because it's a month, I know my C can either be 0 or it can be 1, right? It cannot be 2. So I have, that is the maximum that C can be. So that's one inference that you should be able to make before moving on. Same goes for A. For A also, you can make the same inference. You can say it can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 2, and it can be 3. Because these are the only possible numbers that are there. For B and D, obviously, they can be anything from 0 to 9. Now, how many of you made this inference? Kindly mark yes that before moving to the question stem, to the individual statement, sorry, you did all these analysis. How many of you did that? Like you found, you thought of what A could be, what C could be, you wrote that down. How many of you did that? If you did not, it's okay. Okay. So from what I can see, majority of you, about 66% of you did not do it. So this is what I was talking about in previously, guys, that if you're solving the question, it's always good to make certain small inferences like these. It will help you in the long run. Okay. Now let's go to the question stem. The question stem is, and there are other inferences also you can make if you want to, because now you know the units. Again, let me just write that down because I know this is 8 and this is 1. There is, if you want, some more inferences that you can make. Can anyone tell me if I'm multiplying anything by 11 and I'm getting the unit digit as 1, what can I say about the unit digit of 2 and 4? What can I say about the unit digit of 2 and 4? Unit digit. Can anyone tell me? I'm multiplying something by 11. So what can I say about the unit digit of 2 and 4? What will they be? Yes, Yogi, that's correct. It will be 1, right? So it makes sense to make that inference. So I know that the unit digit of 2 and 4 will be 1. Okay. What about 1 and 3? When I'm multiplying 1 plus 3 and I'm multiplying it by 9 and I'm getting the unit digit as 8. So what is the units digit of 1 and 3? What is the units digit of 1 and 3? If I'm getting the units digit as 8 here, and I'm multiplying it by 9, so what would be the units digit of 1 and 3? 2, right? So see, before going to these statements, these are also certain things that I would say you should be able to think and write down. Okay, saying, okay, units digit, u should be 2, u should be 1, some notation which will help you to understand. Okay, now they're saying the first 2 digits of the document are 20. So now they are helping me a lot. They are telling me, hey, this is 2, this is 0. I'm like, okay, very good. Now I know this plus this. Let me go back here now. Let me work with this one, this part, and I'm writing it here. So 2 plus C multiplied by 9 is giving me 8. And I know C can be 0 and 1 only. There's no other possibility, right? So what should be the value of C? It's very easy, right? You already said the unit digit has to be 2. So I can say it has to be 0. There is no other possibility. So now I even know the value of C. See, it's so easy. Now I know that this plus this, the sum of this, the unit digit has to be 1 because that is what I got here, 1. So what is the possibility? What is the only possibility that is there to get 1? It has to be 1 only, right? It cannot be anything else. So I can say the value of D has to be 1. So notice, by just using this statement and making sure if I have, by doing my pre-analysis properly, I could figure out my answer very quickly from statement 1. Now tell me if this is clear or not. Let me bring up the poll. Kindly mark yes if this is clear. So ideally, I'd expected people to either mark A or D, not C or any other option. So if you would have marked A or D, I would have still been okay with it. But if you have marked something else, like a major 35% of you marked C. So I hope now you understand and understand the importance of this pre-analysis. I cannot emphasize much on that. Okay, make sure that you do your analysis, because if you do it properly, then in the exam, spending time on the question stem would be less. In the statements would be very less. Okay, Shambhavi has a question. Why does D have to be 1? See, the unit digit is 1 here. The 8th digit that I'm getting here is by adding these two. So 0 plus D multiplied by 11 is giving me 1. Keep this in mind, okay? Now think about it. We already decided that 11 times D, when I multiply, it would give me D only. 11 times D gives you D. And if you want 1 here, the only possibility is if D is 1. If you take it as 2, then the unit digit would turn out to be 2. If you take 3 multiplied by 11, the unit will turn out to be 3. So this is the inference that we made in the starting, that the unit digit has to be 1 only. That is why D has to be 1. I hope, Shambhavi, now this is perfectly clear. Okay, now I can see it's clear to most of you. So let me go back to the second. Let me go to the second statement, and let me just remove this very quickly. Okay, what is the second statement telling me? The sum, okay, let me write this down. The sum of the first and the third digit of the document is a multiple of 2. Okay, the sum of the first and the third is a multiple of 2. Now notice I have already written this. What are the possible values of A and C? If I know the sum is a multiple of 2, then what values are possible? Can anyone tell me what values can I take? It's a multiple of 2. Okay, Yogi is saying so much detail, so much inference in 2 minutes. Yogi, I'm explaining it to you, so that is why it seems like I'm taking a lot of time. Okay, once you practice a lot, you should be able to do this much more quickly. Practice is important. When you learn something new, it takes a lot of time. But if you practice enough, it should be easy. So I can see most of you are giving me the correct answer. So let me just very quickly put in here. So one possibility is, and I'm writing just 2 cases very quickly. One possibility could be A and C could be 1 and 1, right? Another possibility, if I can write, the sum is a multiple of 2. And here is also a conceptual knowledge. If your conceptual knowledge is not really good, you might start thinking from 4. Don't do that. 2 is also a multiple of 2. So if you weren't aware of this, please keep that in mind. The other case could be 2, 0, right? 2 plus 0 is also a multiple of 2. Okay, so these are at least two cases. Now, the moment it's a data sufficiency question, so the moment I get two cases, I can pause for a moment and see whether I can get a unique case or not. You can write more cases if you want to, but let's stop here. Okay, and then see what else is given. It's given that the units, the second digit is 0. So they're telling me this is 0. Okay, if this is 0, we are already done in statement 1 that if this is 0, this has to be 1. We already did that in statement 1, so we can do it. But notice now that we are getting two different cases. We have two different cases with us. Since we have two different cases, that is why we can say that this statement is not sufficient. Twinkle, it's not 0 plus 1 multiplied by 9. It is, you're making a mistake. It's the first and the third digit. So I'm taking these two, Twinkle. These two, 1 plus 1 multiplied by 9. 2 plus 0 multiplied by 9. So I hope, guys, it's clear why statement 2 is not sufficient. Statement 2 is not sufficient because we are getting two different cases. Kindly mark yes if this is perfectly clear. So statement 1 is sufficient. Statement 2 is not. So the answer in this case would be option A, which I think about only 10% of you marked. So I'll summarize it very quickly, guys. It may seem that I've done a lot, but notice very carefully, I spent my major time, okay, maximum time on making sure that I know what I'm looking for. This is where I spend most of my time. So it could be 1 minute, it could be 1.5 minutes, but I made sure that my analysis is perfect. If there's something to analyze, obviously. If there's nothing to analyze, obviously, then you cannot do anything. Number one. Number two, once your analysis is perfect, the time that you spend on each and every statement reduces a lot, because now you can analyze each statement in, say, about 30 seconds or 35 seconds, 40 seconds, not more than that. So hypothetically also, let's say even if you take 2.5 minutes to solve this question, there are two positives about it. Number one, the first positive is that you got the question correct. If you would have solved this question, say 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes or something like this, then there's a high chance that you would have made a mistake, right? And the question that you're getting correct is a hard one. It's a difficult question. It's about 650 to 700 level question. So if you're doing it in 2.5 minutes and if you're getting it correct in the exam, then automatically the system would think that, hey, you are capable of doing correct questions. Let me give you more difficult questions. So your score will improve. And don't worry about this 2.5 minutes a lot. Okay. The reason being that in the exam, as I told you, there will be certain easy questions which you will be able to do very quickly. Okay, so don't put a lot of emphasis on timing, please, guys. Okay, so I can see it's clear to all of you. So let's move on to the next question, guys. Here's the next one. Again, take your time. Don't worry about timing. If required, I'll give you 2.5 minutes also, but try to get the correct answer. And I'll bring up the poll very quickly. Guys, you have 30 seconds, then I will end the poll. I have a few responses, but I would encourage people to mark the answer. Whatever you're getting, that's perfectly fine. Ten seconds more, then I'll end the poll. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. So again, I have an interesting result. But this time, a majority of you, about 44% of you, think that the answer should be D. Okay, so let me just very quickly write it down in front of me because I will have to remove this. 44% D, 20% C, and about 20% A. And again, I have a few Bs, 12% and 4%. So this question wasn't wordy, guys, but did you still find this difficult? Or was this easy? You can type in your response in the chat box. Was this question too difficult? Very easy? Okay, Razib says it's medium. Okay, kind of easy. Okay, Rudra says it's easy. Okay. Easy to understand, difficult to imagine. I think what you meant is difficult to implement. Okay, one more question. How many of you took values to solve the question? How many of you took values? Again, you can type in your response in the chat box. How many of you took values to solve it? Okay, Nilab says me, I did, Shambhavi says me. I have a few no's, a lot of no's, I think. Okay. Rudra says me, Natasha says no. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, in this case, if you want, I would say there are both approaches. You can take either the numbers also in some at a certain level, and you can work with expressions also. That's totally okay. So let me talk about how you can solve this question very quickly. Okay, keeping in mind 44% of you mark the answer as D. Okay. Now, as usual, I'll read the question very carefully. On a certain day, a furniture store sold only chairs, tables, and wardrobes. Of all the furniture that was sold on that day, 1/8 were tables. Okay, so I'll write down. So this is where I start doing stuff. I'll write down tables 1/8, 1/4, and wardrobes 5/8. Okay. So now there are two options with you. You can use either the total number of furnitures that are sold as, say, N, and you can start solving the question. Okay. The other way is to take a convenient multiple of 8 and take certain numbers of tables and chairs and then start solving the question. Okay. Either of these ways is totally fine. What you're looking for is the revenue. Now, I did talk about it, I think, in my last webinar, that in questions like these, where there are revenues, there are two things involved. One is the quantity. The other is basically the price per quantity. Okay. Now, in the question stem, nothing has been given over the price. I've been just told the quantity, and that also in terms of fraction. And I need to find out the revenue was greatest for which one. Okay. So I have nothing much to work with. So I'll directly jump into these statements here. As I told you, if you want, you can take total as N, or you can work with a number. So what I'm going to do is just going to show you how I can work with numbers and get the answer. So here, just to make my life easy, I would take this as 8. I'll say, okay, total number of stuff that are sold is 8. So the number of tables that I'm selling is 1/8 of 8, which is 1. Obviously, 1/4 of 8 is 2. And 5/8 of 8 is 5. Keep in mind the answer will not change. If some of you are wondering, hey, why 8? Why did he take 8? Why not n? You can still take it. You could even take 8x. Doesn't matter if you want to. You'll get x, 2x, 5x. So not much is changing in terms of revenue. So you can still work with 8. What's important to figure out the price now. Okay. If anyone has any confusion, you can ask in the chat box. I'll definitely try to respond. So let's go to statement 1. Statement 1 is the price of one chair, table, and wardrobe. And here is where we need to be careful because we started off with table, chairs, and wardrobes. And here it's chair, table, and wardrobe. So don't make the mistake of taking this one as tables because I wrote here as tables. Okay. Now, whenever I have a ratio, and this is a very standard thing which I tell almost all my students to do, that if you want to work with ratios, the moment you see a ratio of C, T, and W as 6, 5, and 3, just write them as something. So say you can say the selling price of the chair is 6x, the selling price of the table is 5x, and the selling price of the wardrobe is 3x. Okay, how does that help me? It helps me because I'm looking for revenue. So when I'm finding out the revenue of the table, I can simply say the revenue of the table is price of one table plus the number of table. So 1 times 5x is equal to 5x. The price of the chair is going to be 6x times 2, which is 12x. And the price of the wardrobe, I'm writing it as short as WAD, is 3 and 5. So 5 times 3x, which is 15x. So can you tell me in this case, which one has the greatest revenue? Anyone? Which one has the most revenues? Table 5x, chair 12x, wardrobe 15x. Which one is the greatest? See, it's very clear as day that in this case, wardrobe is the greatest. So the answer in this case, at least statement 1 is definitely sufficient. Okay, so I hope this is perfectly clear. So if statement 1 is sufficient, my answer cannot be B, C, or E. It has to be A or D. So about 20% of you marked the answer as C. I hope now you understand why that is not correct. You can definitely get the value here. Okay. That's a good question, Priya. You're saying not sure because it depends on X. But there's one thing which I did not tell you, but ideally you should have made an inference is that whatever be X, it does not matter because it's present everywhere. 5 times a certain quantity, right? 12 times another certain quantity. It's a positive quantity. 15 times another quantity, and they're the same quantity. So think about it. If I multiply 5 times 2, 12 times 2, 15 times 2, the greater these numbers turn out to be, the more the value would be. So I don't care exactly what X is here. I know it's positive because it's a price. So I don't need to worry about it. I would have worried about it if X would have been negative also. But in this case, I would have made an inference here, said that X is positive. Since X is positive, I don't need to worry about it. Okay, Priya? Okay, great. So now let's go to the second statement. Very quickly, I'll write down the number of tables so that I don't make a mistake. Tables, chairs, and wardrobes, 5. Okay. The second statement says that the price of one table, so I'll write price of one table as say T, is $10 less than the price of one chair. So I'll write this as my first equation. Okay. And the price of one wardrobe is $20 less than the price of one table. Okay, notice I'm not doing a question in the hurry. I'm reading it properly, doing it properly. Now notice, again, I need to find out the revenue. And again, I have a lot of variables. So if I want to work with variables, what you should be able to notice is that chairs and wardrobes both are expressed in terms of T. So I can write chair as T plus 10 and wardrobe obviously is in terms of T. This is the price per table. And T obviously is the price of a single table. Okay, price of single table. So I'm writing it down so that it's perfectly clear to everyone. So what is the revenue now for the table? The number of unit times this price. So it is 1 times T, which is equal to T. So for table, it's sorted. Let's look at chair. There are 2 chairs and the price is T plus 10. So you'd get 2T plus 20. And for wardrobe, it is 5 times t minus 20, which would give you 5t minus 100. Okay, now tell me which one is the greatest. Can anyone tell me? Shweta, I'll answer your question. Okay, I've read it, but I'll answer it at the end. I hope that's okay. Can anyone tell me which one is the greatest? Obviously, t is not. T doesn't look the greatest, right? Or that can be the greatest. Or is chair the greatest? Or wardrobe 5t minus 100? Yogi says, Sam says, can't say, depends on the value of t. Neeraj says he'll get different answers, it depends on t, can't. That's absolutely good, guys. So I can see Anushka, Priya, you're saying chair, but think about it. You don't know which one. And I'm telling you why, because you notice there's a plus sign here. You're adding something to 2t. I know t is small, but you're adding plus something to it. Here I know 5t is big, but you're subtracting something from it. So you don't know which one is greater. And if you have such a confusion, you can try and write it like this. Say, for example, you're thinking chair is greater. Okay, so just check it out. Can chair be greater? Can I get a positive value of t if chair is greater? Those of you are saying chair is greater. Okay, so if 2t plus 20 is greater than 5t minus 100, then you will get 3t if I bring this here and I bring 100 to the other side, you'll get 3t is less than 120 or t is less than 40. Just look at this very carefully. If you have any doubts, please ask. So what does this mean? It means if t is less than 40, they are putting a constraint here. They're saying if t is less than 40, this will be greater. So for example, if t is 20, let's say 25, let's take 25, okay, then this would be 50 plus 20, 70, which is good. And if this is 25, so you have 25 times 5, which is 125 minus 100, which is 25. So yeah, chair is greater than wardrobe. Very good. But we don't know whether t is less than 40 or not. What if t turns out to be 50? If t turns out to be 50, this would be 120, right? 50 times 2 is 100 plus 20 is 120. If I put a 50 here, I would get 250 minus 100, which is 150. So now notice my wardrobe becomes greater. So since my so Priya says I caught myself being lazy. So that's the point that I'm trying to make. Even I think someone else said that, hey, it looks both of them are sufficient. I think Rajdeep said it. With so much clues, I believe. The word I believe statements are sufficient. The moment you start thinking like this, you'll make a mistake. Don't believe anything, guys, please. Solve it, see it for yourself, and then only believe whether it's correct or not, whether it's sufficient or not. That's the only request. If you feel something, that feeling could be, and I have fallen for those kind of traps, frankly speaking. I've made those kind of mistakes, okay, where I used to say, hey, looks sufficient, let me mark something. I think that's sufficient, both look similar. That would be wrong. Okay, so this statement is not sufficient. We already had eliminated BCE, so the correct answer in this case would be A, which only 20% of you marked as the correct answer. 44% of you fell for the trap because either you did not analyze the full thing or you did it incomplete. Okay. Any questions? So there was one question by Shweta which says, my problem is that I deducted the answer right, but it took me a long time. I was still solving. I was halfway through the first statement. Now, Shweta has talked about this in the beginning, and this is something which I keep on saying. Accuracy improves. There's no magic trick, first of all, for this. There's only one way to improve it, that is practice. Nothing else. Okay, I'm sorry I don't have a very different answer, but you need to practice more difficult questions if you take time. You need to practice a variety of questions like these. These are typical GMAT questions where they'll give you fractions, they'll give you ratios, and they know that you will fall for it. So practice these kind of questions from the official guide, from GMAT Prep. If you want more questions, look at GMAT Wizard. We have a lot of questions like these, but you need to practice such questions as many as you can to improve. Okay. Okay, then 44% of people marked the answer as D. The answer is A in this case. So 44% of you made a mistake, okay? As a Shambhi, even if you're assuming values, see, I'm not assuming random values, okay? What I'm doing is I'm being very logical about the values. I'm making sure that if I feel something is greater, when can it be greater? So I took the case and figured that out, okay? Priya's asking, are we doing all official? No, these are not official questions. These are based on official questions. Okay, but none of them, you'll find them in the exact question, the official guide, but they're inspired from the official questions only. Okay, so I hope this is perfectly clear, guys. So let me move on to the next question. I don't see any more queries on this, but I hope now you understand. Be more thorough. Stop being lazy. Okay. So here's the third one. This is slightly on the easier side, so I hope most of you should get this one correct. And here's your poll, guys. Okay, I've started getting responses, which is good. I'll give you another 1 minute to do this, and then I'll start the discussion. "20 seconds more, then I'll end the poll. "10 seconds. Okay, I'm ending the poll now, guys. Okay, wow. So here we have a clear winner in this, thankfully. Again, I'm not telling you whether this is correct or not, but 60% of you think that the answer should be B. 20%, I have the next highest is 20%. Thankfully, no one marked A, which is good. That means you're not guessing, which is very good. And I have a few C's, 12%, and D as 8%. Okay, so I've noted this down. Let me start the discussion. But once again, what do you think? Was this difficult, easy? I know I said it was relatively easy, but did you find it really easy? Okay, Ketan says easy. Okay, good. Rajdeep says statement 1 not enough. Statement 2 is obvious from the table. Okay. Relatively easy. Okay. Okay, Sai Harish says it's easy. Okay, interesting. Okay, so most of you think it's easy. Yeah, Shweta, there are a lot of variables, but GMAT has started giving these kind of questions you'll find in the official guide also. And a few of our students also reported seeing these kind of questions in the exam also. So I thought it makes sense to discuss it once very quickly. Okay, let's start the discussion. Okay, the first point, it's a multiplication table. So I hope it's clear to everyone how this multiplication table works. I'm drawing a bigger one because I would want to fill in the values. This is P to Q, P to Q. So this is V, which is P square. W is equal to 2P. X is equal to P times Q. Y is equal to 2Q. 2 times, this is very obvious, so I don't need to do anything here. W is equal to 2P. Q is equal to, X is equal to P times Q, which I already know. Y is equal to 2Q. And Z is equal to Q square. Okay, this is what I have. Okay, an important thing is that obviously make sure that you don't assume these to be integers by default in the exam. Always read it properly and see if it says integer or not. Okay, so here it very clearly says that each entry is an integer. Now I have a small question to ask. When I say each entry is an integer, does it mean that the integer has to be positive? And without, and this is I'm asking without going to the statements. Okay, let's say I haven't gone to the statement. I've just read the question stem. Okay, and I see that it says that each entry is an integer. Okay, so can I say that if it's an integer, it has to be a positive integer, or should I be open with all possibilities? Okay, so when you say no, I guess you understand that it's not a positive integer. It can be anything. It could be negative, it could be 0, it could be positive. All these cases are possible, and you should be open to all of them. Okay. P square is positive. Who told Gypsy P square is positive? It's not given anywhere that P square is positive. It's nowhere mentioned. P square can be 0 square also, minus 1 square. Each entry is an integer. That's all being told. So there's a possibility that some of them might turn out to be negative also. Okay, or 0 also. I'm just saying we have to be open to that possibility. Okay, now let's go to the statements. And let's write down what we need. We need the value of Q. So we are looking for Q. Good. First statement is W is greater than 1. Okay, it's an inequality which is telling me that if I look at W, W is 2P. So I know that 2 times P is greater than 1 or P is greater than 0.5. That is all I can say, but nothing else. Nothing else is given in the question stem. As far as I can see, there are only 2 W's. So, but I need the value of Q. So you can very quickly discard it and say it's not sufficient. Thankfully, none of you marked this. So I can discard A and D. So I'll move on to the next statement. W is equal to YP. Okay. Now W is equal to YP, and I know W is equal to 2P also. So what I can do is I can put 2P here is equal to YP. Okay. Now what should I do, guys? Should I cancel out the P's? Okay, let me put up a poll. What is that? Please mark yes if you think we can cancel out the P's. Mark yes if you think we can cancel out the P's. No if you think you cannot. Okay, good. I can see most of you are saying no, 75%. Oh, it's decreasing now. Okay, so about 65% of you, 61% of you think that we should not cancel it, and I agree, don't cancel it. Okay, we just know they are integers. We don't know whether they're positive integers or not. So take P to the other side. Take this as common, and then infer either P is equal to 0 or Y is equal to 2. Okay. How many of you did this? How many of you got 2 values? Kindly mark yes if you did this. How many of you made that inference that P could be 0 or Y is equal to 2? How many of you did that? Okay, I'm seeing that everyone did this. Okay. Oh, now it's decreasing, 50-50. If you did not do it, that's totally okay. You can say no. The idea is to learn here, guys. Okay. So I'm ending the poll. I can say about 60% of you did not do this. So guys, you did not do this because you assumed that they are positive integers. That's a mistake that you made. We don't know whether they are positive int. P could be 0, right? So if you're dividing both sides by P and saying y is equal to 2, the moment you're making that inference, you're making a mistake. Okay, so keep this in mind. You don't know if P turns out to be 0 or y is equal to 2. If P turns out to be 0, then there you will replace this with 0 and then start finding it. You will replace this with 0 and then start making everything 0. Okay, so you'll make this 0, this 0, this 0, this 0, this 0. Okay, but nowhere is this helping you find out Q. So you cannot be sure which one is true. The mistake most of you made here was that you inferred P is positive. It's nowhere given that P is positive. Is this part clear? I'm pausing, I'm taking my time so that I make sure that you understand this properly. Okay, you made that mistake. That is why you ended up, about 60% of you, in fact, ended up marking the answer as B. You marked B because you thought P is positive. Nowhere is it given. P could be 0. Put all of them as 0 in the box. That's totally okay. Nothing wrong with this. Okay, so even statement 2 is not sufficient. So the learning from this question is don't cancel stuff just because you assumed something to be positive. You don't know that. Okay, unless had there been a positive integer given here, each entry or each variable is a positive integer, something like this would have been given, then I would have been sure, okay, this case is not possible. You could have canceled it. Okay, but I cannot cancel it because I don't know it's positive or not. So even statement 2 is not sufficient. Now, when you combine both of them, then things become interesting because now they are telling you P is greater than 0.5. If P is greater than 0.5, then you can be sure that P is not equal to 0. Now you can cancel this out. Now you can say, okay, if I have P multiplied by 2 minus y is equal to 0 and P is greater than 0.5, then P cannot be 0. So the only possible case is y is equal to 2. Now, the moment you have y is equal to 2, you can plug it here and find out the value of Q. So the correct answer in this case, which only 12% of you marked, is C. So I'm again bringing up the yes and poll. Please tell me if this is perfectly clear or not. Keep the note of this. Is a very common mistake that you cancel stuff. Canceling just because you think they are positive. Please don't do that. And this is more of a conceptual mistake than a DS mistake, I would say. So if you make these mistakes, you really need to work on simplification of expressions, algebraic expressions, work on these so that you improve. Okay, so I can see it's clear to everyone. Now see, this was a very easy question, frankly speaking, but what made this tough was the small conceptual thing. So make a note of it, make sure that you never make this mistake again. Okay, so this falls under the category of question, the type 1 error, which I would call like lack of conceptual clarity. Okay, so if this is perfectly clear, let's move on to the fourth question, guys. Here's the fourth one. Here again, it's a mix of both conceptual as well as analysis, a bit of analysis. And I'm bringing up the poll. Here's the poll, guys. Yes, Shweta, you're absolutely correct. In case P times 2 minus y is 0, then that either P could be 0 or 2 minus y can be 0. That's absolutely correct. Priya, I'll be taking a class on inequalities. I think it's the next to next class. I would be talking about it. So you can attend that session and I'll definitely discuss about and or of inequalities. Okay. Glad to see, Sai, you found it an eye-opener. Pushpendra, it's either on the 19th or 26th. I'll confirm in a minute. So there's a stats class and inequalities class on the 19th and 26th. Okay, guys, another 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Okay, I am going to end the poll now. So about 56% of you think the answer should be B. Okay, and I again have about 21% and 17% in C and D. So very quickly, let me jot this down. 21%, D is 17%. Okay, before starting off, guys, I want to understand because the question is dependent on that. How many of you are aware of the formula of curved surface area? How many of you know? How many of you know what's the formula for curved surface area of a cylinder? Anyone? Can you type it in the chat box if you know the formula? And if you don't, you can say no. That's totally okay. Yes, it's saying A%, B% greater. So you have to take it as positive, Janardhan. 2 pi RH, 2 pi RH, 2 pi RH. Isaac says no. Okay, guys, frankly, if you did not know, you could have, at least for this question, you could have searched for it very quickly to solve the question. I would have been okay with it. If you don't know, that's totally okay. I will be talking about it but if you don't know it, then there's a high chance that you might make a mistake in solving this question. So once again, it gets back to the same thing, that you should know the formula and the concepts. In a cylinder question, you might either the formula for a curved, and let me write it in short because I don't want to write it again and again. The curved surface area is given by 2 pi 2 pi, and let me use capital R and H, 2 pi R H, okay, where R is the radius, okay, and H is the height. So if this is your cylinder, we would be taking this H, and we would be taking this radius, capital R. Okay, so those of you did not know it, you can try and solve it along with me and see whether you can get the correct answer. Those of you did know it, you can check the solution, obviously. So in this question, I have a cylindrical tank T1. It has R and H as its radius and the height. So if you want, you can replace it. I did not notice it, so let me just make that change. Small r, small h, okay? Now, there's another cylindrical tank. Okay, so let me do one thing. We know we are talking about curved surface area, so let me write this as T1, curved surface area. And let's talk about T2. In T2, the base and the height of the second cylindrical tank is A% and B% greater than T1. So that means it is more. Now here is the concept of percentage that you should be aware of. When I'm talking about greater, then that means the radius, if I write it as R2, would be whatever is R into 1 plus A by 100. Okay, because it's greater. The height H2 would be small times h plus 1 plus b by 100. So if the concept of percentage is not clear and you did not write this, some of you may have written it like this only. You might have taken it just this. If you have done this, then that means you need to revise percentages. You need to go through percentages again because there's a lack of conceptual clarity. Okay, so now we can write the curved surface area of this as 2 pi r and 1 plus a by 100. And again, I'm writing this all for your convenience. Ideally, I would have written it in just one go, but this is what we get. So which I can simplify it and write it as 2 pi rh into 1 plus a by 100 into 1 plus b by 100. And notice the only difference between T1 and T2 is basically this product which gets multiplied here. Okay, nothing else. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me just remove this if this part is clear. Let me just get rid of this so that I can do my calculation here very quickly. Now, let's see what is being asked in the question stem. We have been asked the curved surface area of T2 is what percent more than the curved surface area of tank T1. Okay. Okay. Now, percentage more. How do you find percentage increase? You find it like this. You take T2 minus T1 because you're talking about percentage more. So T2 minus T1 divided by, and I'm finding the percentage more with respect to T1. So whatever you're finding the percentage with respect to, you take that in the denominator. So T2 minus T1 by T1 multiplied by 100. This is the percentage increase. Now, a lot of you may stop here. I will not. I would write it like this. I can write the above expression like this. Notice if you take T1 here, you'll end up with this. Why am I doing this? Because I can observe that in T2 and T1, the only thing that is extra is this. So when I take T2, when I write T2, notice 2 pi RH, 1 plus A by 100 times 1 plus B by 100 divided by 2 pi RH minus 1 times 100. Notice this 2 pi RH gets cancelled out. So ultimately, the percentage that you're looking for is just dependent on the percent value. Notice this carefully. If this gets cancelled out, you're left with just 1 plus A by 100, 1 plus B by 100, minus 1 times 100. Tell me if this is perfectly clear or not, guys, because if this is clear, nothing else is there in this question. It's after that's very easy. So kindly mark yes if this is clear. I can see Harsh writing a formula. Harsh, the formula that you're talking about is for the total surface area, not the curved surface area. So you need to understand the difference between these two. Okay. Sai Harish, you're correct. Base perimeter, my times height is absolutely correct. So if this is clear, please mark yes. If I can see a few people saying no, I would request about 7% of you are saying no. If there's any question, please ask in the chat pod. I'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay. Now, if since it's clear for the majority of you, I'm moving ahead. So notice I need just A and B, not R and H. R and H gets cancelled out. So percentage is not dependent on R and H. So when I look at the first statement, see how my life becomes easy once I'm done with my pre-analysis. Again, I'll repeat the same thing. Pre-analysis is important if you can do it. So when I look at the radius ratio, I know this is useless. I don't need R and H. That's useless. So I can say my answer cannot be A or D. I'm spending about 10 seconds here, nothing else, not more than that. Even if I've spent 2 or 1.5 minutes here doing all this stuff, not a problem because now I can remove these options very quickly. Second option is telling me the actual percentage. So it's telling me the base radius height of cylinder is basically, and ideally this should be T2, not C2. Okay, is 25% and 30% more than the cylinder T1. So this should be T1. Really sorry, but I think you got the idea here, right? So they're telling you the value here, 25% and 30%. They're giving you A and B. The moment they give you A and B, you know you can plug it in here and get your answer. So the correct answer in this case would be option B. And I'm very glad that 52% of you got this answer correct. You marked the answer as B, 52% of you. So it shows that if you follow the right process, you can get the answer. This wasn't that difficult. Those of you who marked 21% of you who marked C, I think you assumed that you need A, B, radius, and height. You assumed all four things would be important, and that is why you marked C, which makes you fall under the category of lack of thorough analysis, where you did not do enough to figure out R and H is not important. So if this is perfectly clear, everything is perfectly clear, please mark yes so that I can move on to the next question. But guys, take the learnings. You understand I'm using a variety of questions here to solve. Okay, but you need to make sure that you keep the understand the learnings with you. In this question also, number one learning is the concept. You need to know the formula. You need to know how to write percentage more, percentage less. If you know these two things, you will be able to simplify stuff very quickly. Number three, again, is pre-analysis. Do that so that you know exactly what you're looking for. Ketan, it depends. When you say the answer, if they don't give me A and B and the answer should be a function of A, B, what should be the answer? If they don't give us A and B, we will not be able to find out, right? No, if they just tell you A is equal to, say, for example, A is equal to 2B, if they tell me that, what use is that for me? I won't be able to get it, right, Ketan? So I need the exact value or an expression, something I need which would give me. So for example, if you solve this, you'll get something, right? If you multiply it, you'll get something. 1 plus A by 100 plus B by 100 plus AB by 100 square minus 1, right? So even if they give me the value of this expression, say, for example, one of the statement was giving me the value of this expression, I'm okay with it. If they just give me this expression value also, if instead of A and B, if they give me the expression value, okay? So I can see it's perfectly clear to everyone. So let's move on to the, in fact, let's move on to the sixth question, guys. It's an inequality question which I want to discuss. Let's try this. If we have time, we'll go back to the fifth one. Try out this question. And I've opened up the poll. Yes, Ketan, we would need a numerical value. So in this is a good question. I think this is what you wanted to ask. So in GMAT, when they say what is the value of something, they are looking for the actual value, guys. Okay, keep that in mind. They're looking for the actual value. They're not looking the answer in terms of the variable. Janardhan, it's okay if I take this question at the end. I will answer this, but I would prefer to answer this in the end. Okay. So since this is a general query, I would like to take it once we are done with the questions. Okay. But I'll take it up, don't worry. Another 30 seconds, guys, then I will end the poll. Ten seconds. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. Guys, don't put the response in the chat box. That's the reason. That's why I have to keep the messages as private. Please make sure that you don't put in the chat box. Whether private or public, make sure that you don't do that. Okay, so I can see about 45% of you think that the answer should be E. And again, in this case, I have a lot of split, in fact. 25% C, 16% B, 12% A. Okay. Now, guys, I have two questions for you. Number one, how many of you took values to solve the question? How many of you took values? Please mark yes if you were someone who took some values and plugged it in and checked the answer. Okay, I can see that a lot of you did not, which is pretty good. 64, 66% if you in fact did not do this, absolutely good. That's fine. Number two, the second question is, if you can see this is a yes no question, right? So is x greater than 0? So when we have a question like this, is x greater than 0, are we specifically trying to prove that x is greater than 0? Guys, first listen to the question, please. Stop marking yes and no. Okay, listen to the question. The question is, if it's x greater than 0 and this is a yes no question, are we exactly looking for x greater than 0 only? Are we looking for, do we need to prove that x is greater than 0? Or do we just need to figure out whether it's greater than 0 or not? Okay, I can see people marking no, which is good. So you understand this part, right? That if it's a yes no question, I've seen people make a mistake here. A lot of people make a mistake. They think that that if it's x greater than 0, then they need to prove x is greater than 0. Please don't think in that way, guys. Please keep in mind that if this is in a yes no question, you're okay if you get a yes and say x is greater than 0. It's also okay if you get a no also. Okay, if x turns out to be less than 0 also, you should be okay with it. Okay, so keep this in mind. Now, how do we solve this question? Well, I don't prefer the using numbers and solving this question. I prefer the number line method. And this is something that I've talked in my algebra webinar, guys. So if you haven't watched it, watch it, or you can attend the inequalities webinar that's going to happen, I think on the 26th, where I'm going to discuss the number line method. So in the number line method is very easy. I'm going to just talk about it very briefly here. If you want details, I would suggest looking at the algebra webinar. So what I do is, I first of all try and break this down. So here I can see x is common. So I take x common and write it down like this. Break it fully into parts. Then what I do is I find the you can call it the roots or the reference points, whatever you want to call it. Notice there are 3 reference points. So what you can do is you'll say x equal to 0, x equal to 4, and x equal to minus 4. So you'll get 3 reference points, and you mark that on a number line, minus 4, 0, and 4. Now there's a theory which I say that once you have got the reference point, you start marking positive, negative from the extreme right. So you'll start here, write positive, then negative, then positive, then negative. Now, what does this positive, negative means? If you want to understand this, understand what does this inequality mean first. Now, when I say x times x plus x minus 4 times x plus 4 is greater than 0, what this basically means is I'm looking for values of x, please keep in mind, for which this is greater than 0, and greater than 0 means positive. So I'm looking for values of x for which this expression is positive. For example, I can put x equal to, say, 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. 5 plus 4 is 9. Notice this is positive, greater than 0. So I'm looking for those values of x. Now, when I mark this positive, negative, I am basically looking for regions where this is definitely positive, because I'm looking for positive. So what I can say here is that the range is going to be, and I'm going to use a different color here, x greater than 4, and the range could be between this also. minus 4 to 0. Okay. And if you have any doubts, you feel, hey, how is this possible? Try minus 3, for example. Minus 3 minus 4 is minus 7, and minus 3 plus 4 is 1. So notice negative negative would become positive, and this is already positive, so you're getting greater than 0. So notice you're getting two different values, two different range. I'm really sorry. In one of the range, x is definitely greater than 0, since the question was asking greater than 0 or not. But in this range, notice that x is less than 0. So you're getting two contradictory answers. The moment you get two contradictory answers, you can say statement 1 is not sufficient. It could be greater than 0, it could be less than 0. You're not getting a definite yes or no, so the answer cannot be A or D. Okay. Now let me go back to the usual color, and I'm going to do the same thing for the next one. Okay, if I look at statement 2, and I'm solving statement 2 on top because I would need to draw another number line here. X to the power 5 minus 9x cube is less than 0. Now notice less than 0 means negative, okay? Take x cube common. You'll get x square minus 9 is less than 0. And notice this is in the form of a square minus b square. So you'll get x cube, x plus 3, x minus 3 is less than 0. So once again, you can draw a number line and you can find out the 0 point. So x cube is equal to 0 means x is 0. X plus 3 equal to 0 means x is minus 3. And x minus 3 equal to 0 means x equal to 3. So once again, mark these points 0, 3, and minus 3. I'm trying to make sure that it maps slightly with it. 3, minus 3. Okay. And once again, do the same stuff. Positive, negative, positive, negative. Now, if I look at the number line here, notice that I'm looking for less than 0. So I'm looking for values of x that are negative. In the region where it is negative is this part. Notice carefully. It's this part and it's this part. Any doubts so far? Let me bring up a yes and no poll very quickly. If I've been speaking for a long time, so please let me know if this is clear. If there's something is not clear, guys, please ask. If you don't know wavy line, then I would suggest that you try and learn wavy line first, because if you don't know wavy line, this would be difficult to understand. Okay, you will not be able to understand what I'm kind of doing. It might become difficult. So I can see if most of you are saying so it's a 50-50 split from what I can see. Okay, Isaac is saying that I interpreted the question as, are all the roots either positive or negative? It's not talking about root, it's just about the value of x. So you can say x should be positive. Okay, Yogi says, but the signs are opposite in both. That's totally fine. See, understand, okay, I understood what the problem is. Neelam is saying, why have you taken the space between 0 and 3 and the right on the right hand side of, okay. So there are two queries. Let me clear them very clearly so that you understand. So when we make the positive, negative, when we do this, after that, which region to choose, whether we should choose the positive region or the negative region, that is decided by the inequality sign. So if the inequality sign says greater than 0, then we choose the region where we have written positive. Okay. If it's a negative, if it's less than 0, then after drawing the number line and marking the points, we choose the region where it shows less than 0, negative basically. So we take this line 0 to 3, because after doing positive, negative, we are getting negative here and we're getting negative here. Is this part clear? If there's any doubt, please ask. So that is why in this case, in second case, case 2, I'll say x lies between 0 and 3, or x could be less than minus 3 in the second case. Okay. Now notice again, x in this case is positive. In this case, it is negative. And the question is asking, is x greater than 0? They're asking whether x is positive or not. So you'll say once again, hey, I don't know, because I am getting positive also, negative also. Since I'm getting two different results of x, that is why even statement 2 is not sufficient. Is this clear? It does not matter if you get Priya 3 critical points, 5 critical points, 10 critical points. The best part about number line method is that you can apply to it to as many critical points as are there. The process is simple. Find the critical points, mark them on the number line, mark the extreme right as positive and alternate it. Okay. Uh, Someone is asking for the inequality recording. I would say, guys, all the recordings are uploaded on our YouTube channel here. So if you want, you can subscribe to it, and you will be able to get the notification of the sessions also, and you'll find the inequality session there also. Okay. So I hope till here it's perfectly clear. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. Okay, so I hope you understand till this point that we were, and understand this positive negative is being used to find out the range of x, nothing else. We're using it to find out whether it's greater, when it is greater than 0, when it is less than 0. There's no other use of it. Okay, now notice, since I did not get the answer from statement 1, statement 2, what would we do? We'll combine them. And when we are combining, what will we look for? We'll look for values of x, the common values of x, for which this is greater than 0 and for which this is less than 0. That is what we'll look for. Now notice the blue line in both the inequality and see where it is common for both of them. Notice that it is common only in this region. Can you see this, guys? Notice that it is common only in that particular region. Apart from that, there is no other blue line which is common between the first inequality and second inequality. What does this mean, by the way? It means that whatever value is there between -4 and -3, if you plug that in this expression, you will get greater than 0. And if you plug the same value, whatever value that you have picked from here, if you plug it here, you'll get less than 0, so that both of them will be satisfied. Now notice the common region that I'm getting is less than 0. Notice, and this is the only common region between these two. The question was, is x greater than 0? You can say, hey, if I have to satisfy both these inequalities, the only range is between -4 and -3. This is the only possibility, and this is less than 0. So see, I'm being able to give an answer, a definite no. I can say that no, x is not greater than 0. It is less than 0. That is why the answer in this case would be option C. I would again bring up the yes and no poll. Please mark yes if this is clear. If you don't know the inequality methodology, that's totally okay, guys. I would say if you once you go through it, you should be able to understand this very easily. That should not be a problem. Arun, if there would have been an x square, I would have neglected it because it is always greater than 0. So I would have discarded x square altogether. X square is not important, because if I put x negative also, if I put x positive also, that does not change anything. So I hope this answers your query. Okay, I can see it's clear to everyone. So let's move on. And Arun, please let me know if this is clear or not. So all I'm trying to say is that if there's an x square here, you simply discard it because x square is always positive. So you don't need to work with it. Okay, let's come to the last question of the day, guys. And I will bring up the poll for you. Here is it. Yes, Harsh, you're absolutely correct. Any even power we can ignore. That's good, Harsh. The even power is not important. And this is something which I have discussed in the boosters also, Arun, as far as I remember. So you can take a quick look at it. Okay, another 30 seconds, guys, then I will end the poll. This is slightly easier than the last and then most of the questions that we have done today. In fact, this is, I would say, a 600 to 650 level question. Okay, 10 seconds more, then I'll end the poll. Okay, ending the poll now. Okay, so I have 66% of you who thinks the answer should be A, and about 14% of you think the answer should be either D or C. But I'm very glad to say that most of you have got this correct, which is good. The trap that was set here in this question was a C trap, which most of you did not fall for it, which is nice. Now, in a time and distance question, the best part what I find about time and distance question is that you just need to be aware of a few formulas, just one or two formulas, not more than that. One is, and the most simplest formula is distance is speed multiplied by times, right? This is the only formula that we mostly work with. Even when we are dealing with average speed also, that formula also doesn't change anything. It just tells you, let's look at the total distance and let's look at the total time. That's all. So if you want to find out the average distance at any place, just divide the distance by time, the total distance by total time, and you will have your average speed. That's all. Okay. So in this question, if you knew this formula and if you apply it properly, you'll get the answer. And again, I'll do my pre-analysis first. That's what is what's important. So here I'm driving 120 miles. Okay. He drove the first D miles in TRs, the next 120 minus D miles in 0.75 TRs. I need to find out the average speed at which he drove 120 minus D miles. So I'll write down that very quickly because I can see average speed 120 minus D mile. Total distance is 120 minus D. The total time is 0.75 T. So I'll write it like this, average speed of this. Okay. Is what percent more? Notice again, this is a percentage more kind of a question. More than the average speed with which he drove the first D miles. So let me do one thing. Let me write this as A1 and let me write my A2 is D because I drove D miles in TRs. The question is again percentage more. So what is A1 is what percent more than A2? So I'm finding it with respect to A2. So I'll divide it by A2, multiply by 100. And notice I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll write it as A1 by A2 minus 1 because it helps me cancel out stuff. I know A1, and this is a slightly complex equation. So I'll write it like this, 120 minus D by 0.75 T divided by D by T minus 1 multiplied by 100. Now notice an interesting thing here. You have points and let me just, I'm taking it here, guys. Notice one interesting thing here. When I solve this, it's a fraction. So you will get 120 minus D by 0.75 T. And this fraction will basically flip because it's a division sign. So you'll get D by T. So notice this T gets cancelled out. This T is no more there with us. All we are left with is 120 minus D by 0.75 D minus 1 times 100. Now, once again, notice that pre-analysis, how is this helping me out? This pre-analysis is helping me out because now I know the value of T is irrelevant. It's not important. I don't need the value of T to solve the question because T gets canceled out. So even if I'm spending 1.5 minutes at this point of time, I know what I need to look for. And I'm hardly spending any time in the statements. D is 40. I can put 40, get my answer. Statement 1 is sufficient. So the answer has to be either A or D. I go to statement 2, I see the value of T. I know T is not important. So I'll again spend 10 seconds and say, hey, this is not important. So my answer has to be A, which majority of you marked as the correct answer, which is pretty good, guys. 66% of you got this correct. So you ended up on a high note, which is pretty good. I would say, I hope now you understand. Oh, just one sec, guys. I accidentally stopped share. One sec. Okay, let me bring up to the main slide. So main point is, guys, I hope you understand that if you want to solve questions correctly, what you really need to do is do your pre-analysis properly. Through these questions, the main learning I hope you got is that if your conceptual knowledge is not clear, believe me, you'll keep on making mistakes. Even in this question, which is a relatively easy one, if you don't know the formula, you'll make a mistake. If you don't do your pre-analysis, you'll make a mistake. The 4 things that I talked about, you need to work on those. Work on your concepts first, then work simultaneously try to work on your application skills. Try and learn how to do these pre-analysis. Don't be lazy, guys. Please, please, please don't just look at the statement and say that you can that this looks sufficient or I believe this is sufficient. If you fall in that category, it's high time that you get out of it. And the last is don't worry about time. I know a lot of people mentioned about time. Please don't worry about it. Practice in the right way. You'll get used to it. Like I use these methods, right? And I can I can take a GMAT mock today and finish my paper well before time if I want to. And I'll use all the methods that I've told you about. Okay. Now you might say I'm an expert, so I should be able to do it. Why am I saying this? It's not about that. My point is I'll use these methods only, nothing else. I'll solve the way I've shown you here. That's the main part. I'm not doing something here and doing something else in the exam. No. Okay, so with this, guys, I have come to the end of the webinar. Though some of you were asking about the session, next session. Well, on the 18th and 19th, we have a strategy session. So those of you who are planning to take the exam in R1, if you want to learn how to improve your score by, say, 100 points in 40 days, please attend this strategy session, which will be taken by Piyush. And we have a CR session also. Yesterday we had a pre-thinking session. If you want to learn how to do pre-thinking a bit quickly in certain questions, then you should attend us the session on 19th, which is on frameworks. Some of you were asking about the statistics and inequality session. So guys, we have the statistics session on 25th and the inequality session on the 1st. In both these sessions, I think statistics, I believe, is really, really important, guys. I would strongly recommend that you attend statistics because it will help you in the long run. By the way, I have shared the file with you, this PDF. There are still 1 or 2 questions in the PDF, so you can download it and try it at your own time if you want to. Okay. And I've also shared the poll. Feel free to put your responses. And also, please ask questions, guys. I can see most of you are not. So if you have any general questions, I think there's one question which I need to answer for Janardhan, which I'll do that. But if you have any general query regarding quant, please feel free to ask. Okay, I'll respond to it. So as I was saying, statistics is really important. It's one of the most important topics, I would say. If you look at your official guide, you'll see about 20% questions from statistics easily. It will be there 20-25%, and that's a big number from one topic. So it's very important to learn statistics really well. If you are somebody who solves questions using numbers, then attend the number line session, where I'll be just talking about how can you use number line to solve your answers, so solve inequality questions quickly. And I'm also going to show if you want to take numbers, then how you should choose those numbers. So I'm going to talk about that also, okay? So I'll teach you how not to take numbers randomly. After that, we have a few more sessions. As you can see it, you can take a screenshot of this and keep this with you. By the way, we do notify everybody who attends this session. So feel free to ask them. Pushpendu, so I think I answered your query. We'll ping you. So if you have attended one of these sessions, we get in touch with everybody. Okay. I'll start off by the first question which was asked. So Janardhan had a query which was, you got a 49 in mock, and in the last quarter you panicked because you failed to solve questions. So Janardhan, there are 2 things that you need to work upon. Number 1, obviously, is look at your mock and see in which areas are you taking more time. Okay, so if, for example, if you're getting a 49, I'm assuming you're looking for a 50-51. So if you're looking for a 50-51, there are two things that you need to fix. One is see in which topics are you taking more time to solve the question. That means you need to brush up those topics, solve more difficult questions from those topics, and improve on those areas so that you take less time. Second is create in the exam, what I do is I create time slots for myself. So for example, if I have 62 minutes, I break down my 62 minutes like this. Say 30 minutes, and I'm just giving a random numbers, but it's something like this only. 30 minutes, 20 minutes. I divide it into 4 blocks. Divide your time into 4 blocks and try and see whether you can solve, say, 7, 7, 8 questions within that block, or 8, 7, 7. That kind of something like that is something that you need to work on if you want to improve in that area. So for example, say for example, if you decide that you want to spend 20 minutes in the first 8 questions, so make sure that you don't exceed that. So after your 8th question, just check whether you exceeded that time. If you have exceeded that time, that means you need to pace up in the second block, but not in the whole exam. Okay, only in the second block. So pace up in the second block, do well in the, try to make up the time in the second block, and then again resume the way you want to resume in the third block. That way the chances of making the mistake reduces. But if you're taking more time, I would say it's most because of there are some topics where you're taking a lot of time to solve the questions. I would say work on that first. And this is the second timing strategy that we use. Okay, I hope that answers your query. So let's see what's, so Ganda has a query. I have a if you have a GMAT on Tuesday, I would say take rest, frankly speaking. You need to go with a fresh mind. All that if you want to do something also, I would say just revise some of the formulas if you want to. Otherwise, I would not do anything else. There's nothing that you can do in one day. Okay, so just revise if you want to revise the formulas, but don't spend the whole day studying tomorrow. Go with a fresh mind. You'll be able to do much more better in the exam. Okay, Pooja, I'm still unable to, the question is I'm still unable to attend the hard or medium level questions. Pooja, if you're not able to solve medium level questions, I would say it's conceptual issue, nothing else. Nothing else. There cannot be anything else, Pooja. Frankly speaking, you can, if you want, I would say book a one-on-one session if you want with either Piyush or me. I'm sharing the Calendly link. We can discuss the way you solve question. I've shared the Calendly link. Those of you who want to have a one-on-one call with us, please have a one-on-one call with us. We can have a brief 30 minutes call, and I can show you it's mostly conceptual reasons because of which you're not being able to solve the question. Nothing else. The other thing which I keep on telling students is if you're making mistakes, I don't have a problem with that. Like in this webinar, even if you got all of them wrong, I don't have a problem. But your target should be that if you get a similar question like this or you should be able to get that correct with 100% accuracy. If I give you again this 6 question that we discussed today with some tweaking a few things here and there, if you're able to do them correctly, that matters. So Pooja, if you're not doing well, number one, see if your concept is still weak. Number two, if you're still not doing well, I would say try and see whether what kind of mistakes are you making. Are calculation mistakes, missing out on information? Those are the major reasons because of which people are not able to solve difficult questions. There's no other reason at all. And even if you're making a mistake, when you're given a similar question, are you able to get that correct? If that is happening, that is enough, Pooja. You don't need to worry about it. Because at least once you get the similar question second time, if you're getting it correct, that means if you get a similar question in the exam, you'll get it correct. That's more important. Okay. Janata says, I took 24 minutes for the last 8 questions. I took 24 minutes for the last 8 questions and got only 3 right. So Janata, I would say look at the 5 questions which you got incorrect. Are they from the topic that you are not good with it? Because 24 minutes and 8 questions, frankly, it's a lot of time. A lot of time. 3 minutes per question, and if you're still making mistakes, you fall under either of these 2 categories. Either you got a topic which you're not comfortable with, or you made a lot of silly mistakes. There could not be any other reason. But if you had 3 minutes, it's pretty good enough to get more questions correct. At least 6 questions, I would say. So you could have got a Q50 easily, frankly speaking. So maybe you rushed through some of the questions and messed up your accuracy. You can try and do a few more mocks and see whether you can ease up the tension that might be there in the last slot. That's again possible. A lot of people panic. So maybe take another mock and see if you're falling into the same category. These are 2 to 3 things, Janardhan, that you need to look at. And if you want us to look at it, you can book a call with us, as I shared the link. You book a call with us, we can analyze and see what we can do, where you faltered. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Please feel free to ask any other questions that you may have. I have about 5 more minutes. Shweta, we don't conduct a session on IR because firstly, it's not that important. Secondly, a little bit of practice is more than enough. So I would say just look at the official questions of IR that are there on the official guide or on the online. Practice those. The questions that come in the exam are similar to those. They're purely logical questions. There's not much of a theory that is involved. So we usually suggest students to spend maybe a day or two on IR, not more than that. So don't focus too much on IR at this point of time. Whenever you're ready for the exam, just 2 days before, spend some time on IR and AWA. That is more than enough.